If you've received a request to send your rent, lease or ownership details to the Valuation Office agency, this video will help you to complete the digital form. It should only take around 30 minutes to complete. Go to www.gov.uk/send-rent-lease-details. Before we start, you'll need to find the reference number on the letter we've sent to you. It will be on the top right corner. You'll also need your property's lease or agreement, details of any sublettings, and information about changes you've made to the property. Pause the video now if you don't have this information to hand. Once you have these documents, click Start Now. Enter the reference number and the postcode we've provided in the letter. If the postcode we have provided is incorrect, you will have the opportunity to correct this later. But for now, please use the postcode we have provided. This is so we can match your property to our records. Section 1. Are you still connected to the property? If you still own or occupy the property, select Yes. If the postcode we provided is incorrect, you should edit the address now. If you no longer own or occupy the property, select No. You will then be able to remove your connection to the property and we will update our records. Section 2. About you. In this section, we ask for your contact details. We'll only use these details to contact you about your property, and we will never share your information with a third party. If you own the property, but are completing the form on behalf of your tenant, please select Occupier. You can click the Save for Later button at any time to save your answers and finish the form later. Section 3. About your property. Once you have entered what the property is used for and who occupies the property, you will need to provide the date the occupier first took on the property. Enter the date the person or company took on the property, even if they did not start trading or paying rent from that date. If you own the property, you will be asked about any subletting of the property and the process will end here. This is all the information we need from you. If you don't own the property, you will then be asked if you pay rent. You should tick Yes if you expect to pay rent in the future. If you don't pay rent, we'll ask for a reason why. Section 4. Lettings and sublettings. Here, we'll ask if any parts of the property are let or sublet to someone else. Let out parts of the property might include areas used by other businesses, flats, advertising hoardings, mobile phone masts, garages and car parking spaces. If the property is sublet, we'll ask for the details of who it is sublet to. If you have more than one subletting or letting, please supply this information for all of them. Section 5. The landlord. Please give the landlord's details, even if you pay your rent to an agent. If you do not know the landlord's address, you are able to skip this section. You must declare if there is a family, company or business connection between the landlord and tenant. Section 6. The current lease or agreement. Please select the type of lease or agreement you currently have on your property. We are not able to process multiple leases or agreements within this form. If this applies to you, please include details of your primary lease and contact formhelp@voa.gov.uk to provide the VOA with further details. If you have a lease or licence, you will then be asked to provide the start date. If you took over or bought the lease or agreement from someone else, enter the date the lease or agreement itself started and not the date that you took over the property. If your rent is based on a stepped rent agreement, you will be asked to provide details of each rental step. If you have no agreement or a verbal agreement, you will be asked to provide the start date and how long the current agreement is for. Section 7. Rent reviews. A rent review is a time when a change to the rent can be discussed by the landlord and the tenant. It's different from a stepped rent, which has been agreed at the beginning of the lease or tenancy. If your agreement includes rent reviews, you will be asked to provide further details, including when the last rent review took place. You should enter the date of the latest review, even if your rent did not change. Section 8. How the rent was fixed. You will only be asked to fill out this section if your agreement is open-ended or the current agreement does not have rent reviews. In this section, we need to know how your rent was decided. Most rents are decided between the tenant and landlord or their agent. We also need to know the type of agreement that was made. The options are a new lease or agreement, if the rent you pay started because you had a new lease or agreement and you had not occupied the property before. A renewed lease, if the rent you pay started because you had a new lease or agreement and you occupied the property immediately before under a previous lease or agreement. A sale and leaseback transaction, if you sold a property you previously owned and occupied, but you still occupy it and pay rent to the new owner. A surrender and renewal, if you agreed with the landlord to take out a fresh lease or agreement on a property you occupied, even though your existing lease or agreement had not finished. Section 9. The rent. Now we need a bit more detail about the rent you currently pay. We'll ask you when you first started paying the current rent. We'll also ask you when the rent was agreed. This may be a few weeks or months before or after you started paying. If you have a lease or written agreement, it's the date you signed it. We'll ask you if you are in the process of negotiating a new rent or a new lease. When asked what the rent is based on, please take time to read the description underneath each option. Section 10. What the rent includes. If you select yes to any answers in this section, we will ask you to provide additional details. Section 11. Incentives and payments. In this section, we ask about rent-free periods. A rent-free period is a time, often at the start of a lease or agreement, when the tenant does not have to pay rent. It may be given to a tenant to fit out or repair the property, or as an incentive to take the lease. If you received a rent-free period, you must let us know the length and the reason it was agreed. Payments to take on the lease are often referred to as premiums. If you made or received a payment to take on the lease, you must provide details of the amount and the date of the payment. Section 12. Responsibilities and costs. In this section, we ask for information about who is responsible for certain costs. You must state who is responsible for paying for outside repairs, inside repairs, and building insurance. If the landlord directly pays for the repairs and building insurance, you should select landlord. You should select tenant if the tenant directly pays for the repairs and building insurance, or if the landlord recovers the costs, perhaps through a service charge. Repairs do not include decoration. If business rates, water charges or service charges are included in the rent, select yes and provide the amounts. If you are unsure of the exact amounts, enter 1 in each box. Section 13. Alterations and improvements. Here we are looking for details of major alterations, improvements or refurbishments. This may include extensions, demolitions, installing air conditioning or mezzanine floors. You must provide the cost of the works and the date it was undertaken. We are not looking for details about decoration or minor repairs. Section 14. Has anything else affected the rent? If there is anything you would like to tell us that has not yet been covered, please include this here. This could be anything, from your property having restricted opening hours to paying rent for trade fixtures and fittings that your landlord has provided. If there is nothing you would like to provide, select no. You will then be asked to check your answers before you submit. Please take some time to make sure everything is correct. If you're happy that your responses are accurate, click Continue. Finally, you must tick the declaration box and select Submit for your answers to be registered. Once you've successfully submitted your form, you will be asked if you would like to print a copy. You won't be able to print a copy or request a copy of your answers once you close this page, so please make sure to do that now if you'd like a copy. If you've provided an email address, you will receive an email acknowledging successful submission.